Hey guys, welcome back to the Friday Vlog, where we discuss activity that goes on here with the channel, current events, headlines that are in the news, pop culture, technology, and items of interest that come up that allow us to have a little bit of a discussion. If this is your first time here, welcome. I'd encourage you guys to go ahead and click on that watermark over there in the bottom right-hand corner to subscribe to the channel. Your support is always appreciated. This week, YouTube creators received an email letting us know that YouTube was doing away with private messenger. What's that? Private messenger? Yeah, that multi-phased stage of processes that you had to go through to be able to contact a fellow YouTuber. Now, even if you did go through this process and contact someone, it might be months before you even hear from anyone because the messaging system was pretty clunky and ineffective. As a matter of fact, when I would do gaming key giveaways, I'd actually have to make a tutorial not only on how to message me, but then how to reply back and or how to find your messages to reply. So I'm not really sure what YouTube is going to do as far as allowing us to communicate there on the platform. I mean, it seems like this is going to drive us to other particular social media to be able to communicate with fans. I mean, people can probably post down in the comments, but you're not going to want to be able to exchange emails and stuff down there for business related purposes. So they do have a business only email section in our profiles and stuff on our pages, but yeah, of course those can be abused also. But anyway, so they're doing away with the private messaging service, so I'm curious to see what might be used to replace it. On Monday here in the US, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of Jack Phillips, a baker in Colorado who refused to bake a cake for a gay couple who, incidentally, at the time in 2012, gay marriage was not legal in Colorado, although that did not really play into it. The decision that was made by the Supreme Court was based on the Civil Rights Commission there in Colorado showing a level of hostility towards Mr. Phillips and him exercising his political right. Now, the thing about the United States law is, for a lot of people, it's a matter of interpretation. Now, I grew a greater appreciation for our law here in the United States when I had the opportunity to work in law, and towards the end of my stint in law, I worked here for the state of Georgia. So, many of you guys are from foreign countries, and I appreciate and value your guys' thoughts and opinions, but things can be very complicated here in the United States from time to time, particularly making distinctions about our laws. And for just kind of a really general overview, the United States is a constitutional republic. We are not entirely a republic, and we are not entirely a democracy. We exercise legislation, which allows us to then practice democracy. We're a free market system and a capitalistic country. So we have levels of freedoms and expressions within our laws and within the way we conduct our business. Now, this is not a unique case as far as individuals who own bakeries that are trying to exercise their First Amendment right. You may remember the Little Cupcakes or Sweet Cakes couple that had a bakery, and they were sued by a gay couple. Now, it's important to note here that gay couples can go to a bakery, enjoy bakeries here in the United States. They're not openly discriminated against from purchasing or doing commerce in these businesses. It's just that these particular bakers make that particular exception in their business that they choose not to do this. Now, there's other examples and other stories of other religious bakeries, like Steven Crowder did one where he went into a Muslim bakery and requested a gay wedding cake. Of course, it was a bit cynical and sarcastic, but he wanted to illustrate that how we have kind of a selective system. Now, you guys remember that I've often mentioned to you when we're discussing these types of topics how there's certain groups of people that think there are certain rights for this group of people and a certain group of rights for this group of people. Here in the United States, we're supposed to be protected equally under the law. Now, I'm not trying to confuse you guys by going off on all these different directions, but even among my fellow Americans, when we have discussions about these particular topics, a lot of it is just confusion and ignorance of the law. Now, keep in mind here, I'm not saying ignorant people. I'm saying that people are just ignorant of the law. Because the way our legal system works, it can be very confusing. Even when I worked in law, I often had to refer to the attorneys I was working for or references to the database in Mariposa, which is a software system that we use in law to look up case law and things like that. So, you know, it was a constant discussion with the attorneys that I worked for, and even with the state. Thankfully, I had some great public defenders that I worked with, and a chief investigator that helped me interpret and understand a lot of these laws. So if you guys have like specific questions about this particular case, but I also wanted to bring up, excuse me, I also wanted to bring up the fact that the way the media words it, right, was a little confusing to some people because they said narrowly. It wasn't the 7-2, because obviously 7-2 is not narrow. 5-4 would be narrow. But the reason it was narrow was because of the actual decision. That was because that the Supreme Court felt that Jack Phillips was being discriminated against himself. So that's an important thing to say here, because the interpretation always, like I mentioned here, and I'm having the same discussion on Facebook with friends of mine, the interpretation here sometimes when these rulings are made is that, oh, well, this group of people got this particular not right, but this particular privilege, and well, this group over here got that particular privilege, because it's gone back and forth. The decision for gay marriage was also based on a Supreme Court decision and not through legislation. That's an important key to remember here. Another of those would be Roe versus Wade, for example. The right for women to seek an abortion here in the United States was decided from an all-male Supreme Court, which is always kind of ironic and interesting that it's an all-male court, because with these discussions, there's always going to be the one side and the other side, and kind of people in the middle who maybe don't want to go either way. So it's understandable that these particular topics can be very sensitive, and I know I'm kind of like going all kinds of different places here, and that's because if I go into one particular area or another little area, it can lead into a whole other set of dimensions when it comes to our laws here in the United States. But the bottom line to remember here is that in this particular case, it was ruled that Jack Phillips was being discriminated against by the commission there in Colorado. And so that's why the Supreme Court made the decision the way they did, because they just felt that, you know, the individuals there in Colorado were a bit hostile towards his own rights. Because in the United States, we are supposed to be protected equally under the law, and each case can be different, each situation can be different. And although our legal system is not perfect, I would say that we have a very good legal system, especially when it comes to freedom of speech, because you've seen me cover topics in the UK where, for example, Tommy Robinson was arrested for, you know, exercising his speech. But according to additional information on that topic, of course, and that was because that there was like a gag order under the court system. We have those very similar here to the United States, but he violated that there, and that was kind of the auspice for him to be arrested. Nonetheless, guys, if you have any questions, comments, or thoughts on this particular topic, or if you have any particular questions, now I can't answer legal questions because you'd have to have obviously a license to practice law here in the United States, but I can give you kind of an overview of certain things if you have any questions about the way our legal system works. And that's going to wrap up this Friday vlog. Thank you so much, guys, for being a part of the channel and supporting me on this new topic that's here on the channel each week. It's just kind of an opportunity for us just to have a little bit of a discussion, for you guys to kind of see this in front of the camera work. But of course, I always enjoy working behind the camera a whole lot better. So if you guys haven't already, be sure you click on that channel icon appearing here on the screen so you guys can subscribe. I appreciate your guys' support. Feel free to share this with your friends through your favorite social media so they can come to see the channel and peruse the channel yourself. Look around, see if there's some other items here that I have covered that is of interest to you. And I will see you guys next Friday.
Why should Americans be able to trust that what they hear from this White House is always the truth?
Once again, I don't know how many times I have to address this, but I work every single day to give you accurate and up-to-date information, and I'm going to continue to do that. Frankly, I think my credibility is probably higher than the media's, and I think that in large part that's because you guys spend more of your time focused on attacking the president instead of reporting the news. I think that if you spent a little bit more time reporting the news instead of trying to tear me down, you might actually see that we're working hard trying to provide you good information and trying to provide that same good information to the American people. John?